Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be taking a look at all of the dragon incantations that are available in the game. Starting off, I'll talk about where you can go to actually unlock and purchase these. There are two altars in the game. One is at the Church of the Dragon Communion, where I'm currently at, and then there's another place called the Cathedral of the Dragon Communion. Then we'll look into each one of the incantations individually and what they do and things like that. Some of them you can purchase outright just using dragon hearts. Others require that you first defeat a specific dragon to unlock that, so we'll talk about that as well. And then finally we'll get into some items and things you can do to help increase the damage output and potency of the incantations. So starting off, we will talk about the location of these altars where you can go and the process of actually unlocking and getting these incantations. So first, looking at the location for the Church of the Dragon Communion. This is actually pretty close to the very beginning of the game. It's right next to the first step, Site of Grace. So from there, you can kind of quickly make your way down to the beach. There's those ruins there that you can climb down that'll get you there. And then just to the left of my head there is the entrance to the coastal cave. So go in there, make your way through the cave, and that'll exit out right here on this island. So this is the Church of the Dragon Communion. From there, you can make your way up the hill where the church is located. Once you make your way into the church, there is going to be this altar that you can interact with. So if we examine the altar, there's this option to use the Ritual of the Dragon Communion. And for this one, this is going to have 3 of the incantations that are available for purchase: the Dragonfire, the Dragonclaw, and the Dragonmaw. The other location is called the Cathedral of the Dragon Communion, and it is located in Caelid. So on the map here, we can see down south here at the bottom, here's the Cathedral of the Dragon Communion, Site of Grace. It's going to be a pretty similar layout. Within the church, you'll have the altar that you can interact with here. And this one is much more useful in the sense that the first location only has 3 incantations that are available for purchase. This one, you can purchase all of them. So if we open up this, we'll see all of them that are available to purchase here. So now we'll start taking a look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. Starting off, I'll just kind of scroll through all of them so you can see them. The way it breaks down, and some of these are honestly kind of very similar to each other, but you get 4 fire-based attacks, there's 2 magic-based attacks, 2 Scarlet Rot attacks, 2 ice attacks, 2 physical attacks, and then this Greyoll's Roar is kind of a debuff attack. So we'll start off looking at the Dragonfire, but just to cover real quick, the way you use these is you need to use a seal. So you can technically use any seal that you have, however, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in the next section when we talk about items that you can use to help increase the damage and potency of these. The Dragon Communion seal actually boosts Dragon Communion Incantations, which you can see under the passive effects there. So ideally you want to use this Dragon Communion seal, but you can use any one that you have available currently. To purchase these, you need to use dragon hearts, which are acquired by defeating the variety of dragon bosses that are roaming around the world. Typically, depending on the incantation, it's going to require either 1 or 2. However, the Greyoll's Roar will require 3 dragon hearts. And then for the attributes that these use, it's both Faith and Arcane, so those have requirements for each one. The highest requirement, again, is this Greyoll's Roar, which is 28 Faith and 17 Arcane. So if your stats are at that level for both, you'll meet the requirements of all the other ones and you can use them all. And then to equip them, you need to go to a Site of Grace, and once there is an option to memorize a spell, and this is where you can equip it to one of your slots. So these will be found under the offensive incantations, and all of them will be found in this section. Alright, so first looking at Dragonfire, this one requires 1 dragon heart to purchase, and you do not need to defeat a specific dragon to unlock it. For the effect, it spews Flame Breath. It requires 28 FP to use, as well as 15 Faith and 12 Arcane. One thing to note on the description is that you can charge it to extend the duration. So now demoing that here, first I'll just tap the button and that'll kind of be like a single use. However, as noted, if I hold the button down, that'll extend out the duration of it. And obviously, as you do that, it's going to use more FP. Now testing it on some enemies here to see the effect of that. Alright, so that's Dragonfire. Next is Agheel's Flame, which costs 2 Dragon Hearts to purchase, and you also have to defeat Agheel the dragon before you can unlock it. The FP cost is 36 and requires 23 Faith and 15 Arcane. This is basically just kind of like an upgraded version of the Dragonfire incantation. It's very similar. In terms of where Agheel is located, it is in Limgrave, next to the Dragon Burnt Ruins in this lake. So once you come here, he'll kind of fly down and the battle will start. Once you defeat him, that'll then unlock the ability to purchase this incantation at the altar. Now for a demo. So this is going to be very similar to the Dragonfire incantation. It works basically the same way. You can hold the button down to do an extended duration of it. So basically it's just kind of a more powerful version of the Dragonfire incantation. Moving on to Magma Breath. This requires 1 Dragon Heart to purchase, but also requires that you defeat the Magma Worm in Mount Gelmir. It uses 30 FP, as well as requiring 14 Faith and 10 Arcane. For the effect, you spew Magma Breath, and if we look at the description, it also has a follow-up attack that you can do with it. So in regards to the Magma Worm that you need to kill, he is in this lava pit here, which is located right next to the Seathwater Terminus site of Grace, which is kind of over by that castle here. So from there you can run over here and he'll be sitting in this lava pool. Once you defeat him, then that'll unlock the ability to purchase Magma Breath. Now for the demo. So the first part of it, you spew magma, which you can see here, and then it just kind of lays there for a little bit, which can continue to damage enemies. However, there's also the follow-up attack you can do. So do the first part and then the follow-up attack, which is more magma. So if we go up to our enemies here to test it out, we'll do the full sequence of the first attack and then the second as well, so you can see the continued damage that it does to them. Theodorix's Magma is going to require 2 Dragon Hearts to purchase, and also requires that you defeat the Great Worm Theodorix. So, like the Agheel's Flame and Dragonfire being like very similar to each other, it's kind of the same story with Magma Breath and Theodorix's Magma. They're both very similar to each other. This one requires 45 FP cost, as well as 21 Faith and 14 Arcane. And again, it's going to be very similar to the Magma Breath, where you spew out kind of a pool of magma, and then also has a follow-up attack to it. So in terms of the location for the Magma Worm that you need to defeat, it is in the consecrated snowfield region, and it's right at the end of this frozen river next to the Cave of Forlorn, and this is where you'll fight him. And again, once you defeat him, you'll unlock the ability to purchase this incantation. Now we'll test it out on some enemies, and I'll do both the initial attack and the follow-up secondary attack. So there you can see, very similar to the Magma Breath. Next, we'll look at the first of the 2 magic-based dragon incantations. So this is Glintstone Breath. It requires 1 Dragon Heart to purchase and does not require that you defeat any sort of dragon to unlock it. It uses 20 FP and also requires 15 Faith and 12 Arcane. You spew Magic Breath, and similar to the others, you can charge it to extend the duration. So demonstrating that here, we'll do the full duration of it. So that is Glintstone Breath. And then there's Smarag's Glintstone Breath, which is basically just like an upgraded version of the standard Glintstone Breath, so the mechanics are going to be the same. It requires 2 Dragon Hearts to purchase, and you also have to defeat Smarag the dragon before you can purchase it. It uses 36 FP, as well as requiring 23 Faith and 15 Arcane. In terms of where the dragon is located, it's in the Liurnia of the Lakes area. This is where it's at on the map. It's right next to this crystalline woods site of Grace, just south of it, and he'll be sitting in this rock formation where you can defeat him. And then we'll do the demonstration here. so that is Smarag's Glintstone Breath. Now we've got the two Scarlet Rot based dragon incantations. So the first is Rotten Breath. This requires 1 dragon heart to purchase, and you do not need to defeat a dragon to unlock it. It uses 36 FP and requires 15 Faith and 12 Arcane. So this will spew out Scarlet Rot Breath and can also inflict Scarlet Rot. Here's the description. Similar to the others, you can hold down the button to extend the duration of it. So we will demonstrate that here. So there you can see the damage, and then it's also doing additional Scarlet Rot damage as well. And then we have Ekzykes' Decay, which it requires 2 dragon hearts to purchase, and you must defeat Ekzykes the dragon to unlock it. This uses 48 FP and requires 23 Faith and 15 Arcane. So again, this is going to be kind of an upgraded version of the Rotten Breath incantation, and it'll also spew out Scarlet Rot Breath. Here's the description for that as well. In terms of the location for Ekzykes the dragon, it is in Caelid, right next to the Cathedral of the Dragon Communion, just north up a little bit. Here's kind of the area where he'll be sitting, and then once you defeat him, it unlocks the ability to purchase this incantation. And then here it is in action. So again, similarly, it'll spit out its initial damage and then also have residual Scarlet Rot damage as well. Moving on to the 2 ice-based attacks. So we have first Dragonice, which only requires 1 dragon heart to purchase, and you do not need to defeat a dragon to unlock it. So this uses 36 FP and requires 15 Faith and 12 Arcane. So this will be an Ice Breath attack. Here is the description for it. Also, you can extend the attack by holding the button down. So here's that one. So that is Dragonice. And then we have the upgraded version, Borealis' Mist, which requires 2 dragon hearts to purchase, and you must defeat Borealis the dragon to unlock it. It uses 48 FP and requires 23 Faith and 15 Arcane. Here's the description for the incantation. In terms of the location where the dragon is, it's in the Mountaintops of Giants region on the Freezing Lake. So there's a Site of Grace Freezing Lake right next to it, and he'll be on this lake here. And once you defeat him, that'll unlock the ability to purchase this incantation. Alright, and then wrapping things up with the last of the physical attack incantations, we have Dragonclaw and Dragonmaw. So these are a little bit different than the other ones we've looked at so far, in the sense that they're physical attacks and they work a little bit differently, which is cool. So Dragonclaw, it requires 1 dragon heart to purchase, and you do not need to defeat any sort of dragon to unlock it. It uses 32 FP and requires 17 Faith and 13 Arcane. So for this one, you'll do kind of a big Dragonclaw attack, which we'll look at. If we look at the description, it also has a follow-up attack that you can do. So before we use it on enemies, I'll kind of demonstrate that here first. So the first attack is that big claw, which is awesome. And then, as mentioned, you can do a follow-up attack to that as well. So we'll do that here. All right, so now let's try it on some enemies. Alright, so that's Dragonclaw. And then the other physical dragon incantation is Dragonmaw. This also is 1 dragon heart to purchase, and you do not need to defeat any sort of dragon to unlock it. It uses 46 FP, requires 24 Faith, and 16 Arcane. So this will be similar to Dragonclaw in that it's a physical attack, however it's going to be a bite. And in the description, you can see that there's no sort of follow-up attack, so it's just a single attack that you can do. So that looks like this. And then we'll do it on some enemies here. So that is Dragonmaw. Wrapping things up with the final dragon incantation is Greyoll's Roar. This requires 3 dragon hearts to purchase, and you must defeat Elder Dragon Greyoll to unlock it. It uses 62 FP and requires 28 Faith and 17 Arcane. Of all of the incantations, this one's probably the most unique. It does do a little bit of damage, but its primary function is a debuff. So if we look at the item effect, you emit a roar, and then within the description you can see that it reduces the attack power and defense of nearby enemies. So we'll take a look at that, but before that, where this is located. So the Elder Dragon Greyoll is this ginormous dragon, if you haven't seen him yet. He's located right next to this Fort Faroth, Site of Grace in Caelid. He has a ton of health. If you use a weapon with bleed, that helps out a little bit with that hemorrhage damage, but basically you're just going to have to swing at him for quite a bit until he finally dies. He doesn't attack you or anything, he just kind of sits there, so it's not something that's too dangerous, but it just is time consuming. But once you finally take all his health out and he dies, that'll unlock the ability to get this incantation. So to get an idea of how impactful the debuff is on the incantation to its defense and attack power, what I'm going to do is first I'll hit him as well as get hit by him and see what the damages of those are. Then I'll do Greyoll's Roar, and then again hit him again and get hit by him, and then compare the differences. So starting off, we'll do a hit, and that's 522 of damage, and then we'll get hit. Move to the left and then get hit. Here we go. Alright, so I did 522 damage, and he took me down to 1050, which is 531 damage. So now I'll do the incantation and then hit him again. So now I'm doing 574 damage, which is about a 10% increase to my attack. And then, actually, let me heal first real quick. And then get hit here again. So now, if we look at our health from that hit, that took us to 1130, which is 451 damage. So that's about a 15% impact to the damage decrease. You'd also notice that it does do a little bit of damage as well. So we'll do it again. So I do 256 damage, which isn't very impactful, but it does do a little bit of damage as well when you do the incantation. Alright, so now that we've gone through all of the different dragon incantations, I'll talk a little bit about some items you can use to help enhance their effectiveness. So starting off, the first one I want to talk about is the Dragon Communion Seal. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, you can technically use any seal that you have to use dragon incantations. However, for this one, if you notice under the passive effects, it notes that it does boost Dragon Communion Incantations. So if you have it, that's typically the one that you'll want to use for these. It's located actually like right at the very beginning of the game. I'm at the Stranded Graveyard, Site of Grace, and literally right next to it is the Stone Sword Key wall. So this will require 2 Stone Sword Keys to unlock. Once that's done, it'll lead into this area where if you've done one of these before, it's one of those like obstacle courses with the chariots that go up and down the hills. So you'll have to make your way through there, and then there's an enemy that you'll fight, and he drops the dragon seal once you defeat him. So real quick, I'll just show a quick clip of me getting that. To demonstrate the impact of using the Dragon Seal compared to something else, I will do a test here. So first I'll use the Giant Seal. So that was 204 damage. And then with the Dragon Communion Seal, we'll do the same attack on this guy. So that is increased to 258. And then you can upgrade your seals just like you would a weapon. These use Somber Smithing Stones, so you can upgrade these to +10 just like a Somber Smithing Stone weapon. I went ahead and upgraded my Dragon Communion Seal to +9, which you can see now gives me an S scaling for Arcane. So we'll do another attack just like before and see the damage impact of that. So you can see that increased up to 477. Your stats also impact the effectiveness of these incantations. So dragon incantations use both Faith and Arcane. Admittedly, my character currently isn't built out too well to take advantage of these. I've got fairly low Faith and Arcane. I've got 28 Faith and 20 Arcane. I'm actually using a talisman for Faith to give me +5 Faith to try and increase that as much as possible. This helmet also increases by +3 as well. So kind of to show the impact of that, I'll remove this talisman. That'll drop my Faith back down to 23. So if you remember last time we did 477 damage, and now we'll see how much damage we do with 5 less Faith. So that dropped it down to 440, just kind of demonstrating the fact that the stats do have an impact on damage output. Next, we'll look at some talismans. So there are some talismans that you can use to impact the effectiveness of these. The first one is the Phlox Canvas Talisman. So you can see the item effect here that it greatly raises the potency of incantations. So we'll equip that. I'm also going to put my Faith Talisman back on just to get back to that 477 damage. And then we'll do an attack here and see how big of an impact that has. So that jumped it up to 515. And then depending on what type of attack it is, you can also use Scorpion Charms. So I'm using the fire-based attack, so we could apply the Fire Scorpion Charm. You could also apply the Magic Scorpion Charm to build out those magic attack dragon incantations as well. But for the purpose of this, we'll put the Fire Scorpion Charm on and see the impact of that to the fire attack. So that increased it to 576. And then there's some other random things that you could try playing around with as well. So one thing I did try testing, which I was a little disappointed that it didn't work, was equipping this Roar Medallion. I kind of figured that these would fall under Roar and Breath attacks, but apparently that's not the case. It didn't have any impacted damage when I tried that. As mentioned, you could use the Magic Scorpion Charm if you're doing the magic-based attacks. You could do some other, like just general damage, increase attack talismans like the Ritual Sword Talisman. If you're doing the Scarlet Rot-based incantations, you could do the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation. That increases your attack power when Rot is in the vicinity. And then there's some other like non-damage based ones that you could take advantage of. So the Primal Glintstone Blade, that will cause the incantations to consume less FP. So if we look at, as an example, these do impact the dragon incantations. As if we look at the Agheel's Flame, you can see that costs 36 FP. But if I equip the Primal Glintstone Blade, and then we look at that again, that gets dropped down to 27. So that impacts that as well. And then finally, there is a Wondrous Physic tier, the Magic Shrouding Crack tier. You could try and use that too. That'll boost magic-based attacks as well. Alright, so that was an overview of the dragon incantations in Elden Ring. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it was helpful, and we'll catch you in the next one. So thanks for watching, and we will see you later. Bye.